Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a video talking to you about the new furniture from Midwest Industries with their new Alpha line. Now, the AK industry when I first started was, I would say, relatively underserved, but Midwest Industries was one of the early companies to make products to accessorize your AKs and modernize your AKs. I've been using their stuff for over 10 years just on AKs alone, and I think that they have reached another high point with this new Alpha furniture that they've brought to market. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I did not pay for this furniture or the rifle that it's on. They supplied the rifle with the furniture at no cost. Now, I did provide the optic, the light, the laser, and all that stuff, but the core rifle and the furniture they did provide for this review. That being said, you're still going to see what my experience has been and see how this thing has performed, including some of the low points there, but we'll definitely get to that later on in the video. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know so you can do with that information what you will. Now, there's three main components of this rifle that are highlighting their new Alpha furniture with this M-LOK handguard, the rail dust cover, and this Alpha stock here. I've now got about 1,000 rounds through this rifle with this furniture, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea how this stuff is going to hold up. Now, obviously, 1,000 rounds in AK world isn't a ton, but again, I think we have enough to have a good idea of what this thing's trajectory is going to be like. So I feel like this is a good opportunity to talk to you about my experience with these pieces of furniture and give you my thoughts and suggestions if this is something you're considering doing yourself. So first, I'm going to start with the handguard. Now, this is, if I remember correctly, the 10-inch handguard, and obviously in M-LOK. Now, this I think is one of the biggest improvements over what Midwest Industries had available in the past. They've been making extended handguards for stamped AKMs and the Yugo pattern AKs for a very, very long time. However, one of my biggest gripes, and why I haven't used those handguards in the past, is they make you eliminate your sling mount on your handguard retainer. And while I almost never use those sling mounts, if I can at all avoid it, I don't like making permanent modifications to a gun when I'm going through the modernization process. So that's something I've been hesitant to do. Now with this new Alpha line, we are able to retain that sling mount, so I can keep this in a more or less factory configuration. So if I want to go back and forth between Nyet rifle is fine and full Alpha AK, I have a little bit of an easier time doing that. Now, with this extended version, I get out past where the normal handguard would end. So in fact, as far as the light and the laser, I'm actually further forward than I've been able to get on AK handguards in the past. And that is a really good thing because, for example, with a Purst 4 like the one that I have up here, an infrared and visible laser for using with night vision, I can now get that forward of the handguard, which frees up a lot of the space where my hand wants to naturally be while I'm shooting, and also still give me that good presentation to be able to get my zero the way I want it. I can also throw the light further forward, so I have a Surefire 340 Pro here on the side. This allows me to get that light further forward, so I'm getting less shadow off of that front sight post and obscuring less of my target, and also reducing the amount of stuff on my side of the gun that is being brightly illuminated. So I really like the way that this has been incorporated forward of the handguard. Now, if you wanted to run something a little bit shorter, you could have that handguard end at that handguard retainer, or if like you're running a crank style gun or something like that, you have that option. Now, being an M-LOK handguard, we have the M-LOK in the typical positions you would expect at the 3, 6, and 9. However, they've also added extra sections on the tops of the 3 and 9 o'clock positions. So we have 2 rows, one on the side and then one a little bit higher up. So like in this case, I have my tape switch for my Surefire pressure pad located up here, because if I had it on that exact 9 o'clock position, I wouldn't have enough space to be able to do that with that sling mount on the handguard retainer. So I do like having that extra row, especially since we have a taller handguard than we'd be running on an AR-15. So if we have this space, we might as well utilize it. We do also have M-LOK on the lower corners of the handguard as well. So if I wanted to, I could move pressure pads down there. You just have a lot of options as far as where you're mounting to here, along with having rail across the top. Now the top of the rail is also skeletonized to really allow that heat to flow out, which is a very good thing. AKs tend to get hot, so having the ability to allow air to vent out, especially through the top where that hot air wants to naturally go, I think is a really good design on this handguard. We do also have QD sling mounts built in, so as you can see, I'm QD'd into one here on the 9 o'clock position. We also have it on the 3 o'clock position on this side. Nothing along the bottom out of the factory, but with M-LOK, we can put those really wherever we want them. Now, moving on naturally from the handguard, we have the dust cover. So the dust cover, the rail dust cover, along with the optic specific mounts that Midwest Industries is including in their Alpha line are going to require you to use their handguard, and the reason for that is the optic mount is going to index off of the handguard. So that is going to bracket into the M-LOK on the handguard, brace off of your rear sight base, and then give you your optic mount behind that. And actually, before I move too far forward here, we do also have heat shielding in the lower portion of this handguard to help keep that heat away from your hand, which is definitely a welcome addition. And if you're used to running AKs, you know things get a little hot and spicy, but again, allowing that air to still vent out the top, so good to go there. So anyway, moving back, even with that rail dust cover, you are able to retain your factory rear sight. So what that means is if I take my optic off, assuming especially I'm not running a Purse 4 or any other laser unit on top, I can still use my iron sights very adequately with this setup. A lot of the rail dust covers that I have experience with in the past, prior to this, you eliminate your rear sight. This, you are allowed to keep it. And especially if you're running their dedicated aimpoint micro mount, you can also still co-witness with that. So that is a really nice feature, while still also allowing you to be able to disassemble and field strip and clean your rifle. Now in this case, because I'm running a low power variable, which is also in a Midwest Industries QD mount, you do have limited access to the inside of your gun, but I still can hinge this open and get the bolt carrier group out and the recoil spring out. So I still can field strip and clean this, but I can't really do like trigger maintenance or anything like that unless I remove the optic entirely. Now when it comes to dust covers, the obvious question is going to be return to zero. And that is one of the things that Midwest Industries has put the most effort into when it comes to the dust cover, is making sure that it returns to zero. Now, as I alluded to at the beginning of the video, I did run into some issues with this furniture set. And one of the big issues that I ran into was having that rear dust cover not being super solid and being a little wobbly, which created issues with just getting the gun zeroed in the first place and then having issues with that return to zero. Now, I reached out to Midwest Industries to see whether or not what I was experiencing was normal or if it was abnormal. Basically, they said, hey, send us your rifle, because obviously, if you're at all following the product release for these, you know a bunch of people were sent rifles with their furniture to be able to do testing and review. So I obviously got one of the early versions of it, and the version that I got, the pin that it pivots on was a little too thin for the mount and the dust cover. So because of that, I had excessive play in my dust cover. Sent it into Midwest Industries. They figured out what was going on. They fixed that and also introduced methods of making sure that that doesn't happen in the future. So in the long run, the issue that I ran into will help prevent other people from running into that issue. But they addressed it, they got it taken care of, and we did do quite a bit of testing with that return to zero. Now, I did run this with a couple different optic setups, including a red dot with a magnifier, but I wanted to run it with an LPVO, doing that return to zero test at 50 yards just to see what I was gonna get consistency-wise. So what I did, I was out with my buddy, we were doing some shooting, and first thing I did, got this thing zeroed at 50 yards, shot a 5-shot group from a specific box of ammunition, and basically to make sure I'm using the same ammunition through the same return to zero test. And then we did a bunch of drills and shooting in between, getting the gun nice and hot. And before I shot each group, I opened and closed the dust cover a couple times just to rattle things up if I could, and then shot another 5-shot group. Let me go ahead and show you the 5-shot groups that I got with this. Now, I will say originally I meant to shoot 4 5-shot groups throughout the day. However, I only did 3 of them, and that is because my buddy Alex that I was out there with didn't understand the course of fire for one of the drills and accidentally shot at the 0 target that I was using. So at that point, it became hard to discern which shots were which, but I did take a picture after each 5-shot group, but I didn't want the group to look worse than it was because it had errant shots on there. So did three 5-shot groups, but I'll go ahead and show you those results right now. All right, so we're doing a 5-shot group on that target at 50 yards. I've got some Golden Tiger ammo with this 1:6 scope. We'll see how this does. We're gonna do a lot more shooting with it and then see if this thing continues to hold 0 throughout the day of shooting. Not a perfect 0 with this ammo, but it'll be good enough for us to be able to actually gauge any point of impact shift once we take the dust cover on and off. All right, I'm gonna go take a picture with my phone so that we can keep record of each 5-shot group as we go. So we got some horizontal stringing. I think that's me not having the best rest in the world, but our general trend is centered. So let's see if that continues as we continue to shoot here. All right, so we got about 100 rounds through this thing. Wanted to let it cool. So we're just gonna open and close the dust cover a couple times. Now, I can't open it any further than that because of the way it's hitting up in the front of the scope. I apologize for the wind noise. I know it's terrible. Try shooting in it. But just open and close it a couple times, and then we'll rack the action just to get everything recentered, and we'll shoot another 5-shot group. That one, I know I pulled low left. Also the target was being pushed by the wind. At the end, let me go take a picture. All right, so that was my last shot there. The wind is just really pushing this target around. I'm just gonna put my hand on it to stabilize it a little bit. So we're seeing very little, if any, point of impact shift in that 5-shot group. We'll see if I can time it with this target. It's pretty windy out here. These targets are moving around a lot. That's not helping. We even had to put another target stand on top of it to keep it from falling over. All right, so it seems like we were able to avoid any crazy flyers this time, keeping it all in this general vicinity there. So not too shabby. So I would say that that is perfectly acceptable as far as a return to 0. Now I didn't do drop testing or anything crazy like that. If that's something you guys really want to see, I can try to do that in the future, but I wanted this to be realistic expectations of what you can do with a low power variable on your rifle. So do with that information what you will. And speaking of return to 0, one thing I didn't talk about with the handguard is if we're talking about handguards, one of the main questions people are going to ask, especially seeing that I have an IR laser installed, is how rigid is that handguard is a laser going to maintain 0 on there? And I can say that this handguard is very, very solid. I had no issues whatsoever with anything coming loose or anything being wobbly. Now, part of that is that the handguards that this use are designed to be fit to the rifle. If you do like a one-size-fits-all right out of the box, because of the variances in AKs on the market, you're never going to have something that fits super solidly. So by giving you something that you have to size to your gun, you are ensuring that more secure lockup and that more maintainable 0 if you are running any sort of night vision equipment on your handguard. So I have a lot of confidence in this handguard. It's very solid, and I don't have any worries of that being an issue with this rifle. Now, going back to the dust cover, one of the things that they did to make sure that they had that return to 0 squared away was they changed the little button back here, so that rear portion of your recoil spring assembly, you do have to replace to make it work with this dust cover. And again, that's just ensuring that you get that nice positive 0. And one of the things that they say after you open and close the dust cover, you want to rack the charging handle a minimum of 2 times, just to make sure everything is seated back in its original position before you begin shooting again. And again, in my experience, it worked very, very well. So moving on from there, the main other piece that we have here from the Alpha series is this stock. Now, this is actually my second stock that I have from them. The first one is on my CZ Bren 2, which I think the stock looks excellent on there. But this stock mounts to Picatinny and has been working very, very well. I really like the design of this stock. Now, obviously, it's reminiscent to some non-domestic stocks that in the past have been available on the market, but they get a lot right on this. So first of all, obviously you're going to see this cheek pad here. We have an adjustable cheek rest. Now I'm not going to do it on camera just because, or adjust it on camera I should say, because I have Loctited these 2 screws to make sure they don't walk on me while I'm shooting. But basically I can take these 2 thumb screws loose and then raise this stock into any of 4 positions. I could also remove it entirely if I so chose, but by having this adjustable cheek rest built in, it's still very svelte on here, and I can get my cheek at the right height to use a magnified optic like this primary arms here. So I really like the design of that. Now, if you're a lefty, you could basically flip the whole stock over, and because you can adjust where the actual butt pad sits on here, you could, I presume, flip that over and again have those screws on the other side. As a righty, it's going to come out of the box ready for you to work with. Now you also have length of pull adjustment, so I actually have this backed out a little bit so I can get proper eye relief with this low power variable, but you have a lot of adjustments. So just the one side, just the outside in this case, moves forward and backward, but you have a little button here on the side. You press that in and that's going to allow you to move it pretty far back, way longer than I would ever need this thing to be. And then I can also collapse it all the way down and have what is, to me at least, feel-wise, pretty dang close to regular Warsaw pack length. With this low power variable though, I have it back to positions right there, and that works really well for me. You also have some sling mounts, as you can obviously tell. I've got it on the outside back here. We also have on both the 3 and 9 o'clock right behind the folding knuckle here. That has worked very well. I like how many options this gives you for a sling. My personal preference though, as someone who likes to run 2-point slings, is having it on the outside at the rear. If I was running a single point, having it right there behind the folding knuckle, I think is a really good place for that. Now, mentioning the folding knuckle, this stock does fold, so it does take a little bit of effort to get that stock closed, which is good, I think. Takes a little bit of practice to get that movement down. As you can see though, once you get used to it, it's pretty easy to do. And then it has kind of a detent, almost basically the way the spring mechanism works. It holds it closed, but you can just pull on it to get it to open up. But I think it's a very good design. It's been very solid feeling for me. And again, it just attaches to Picatinny. Now, Midwest Industries, if I'm not mistaken, just announced that they have a Picatinny adapter that will work on the back of an AK receiver. Probably something you might want a gunsmith to do if it's not something you feel comfortable doing yourself. But Midwest Industries is coming out with products to make it a little bit easier for people to integrate this into their existing AKs if you don't already have Picatinny rail at the back of your receiver. So I think that's a pretty cool option. Now you do, again, as I mentioned, have the ability to move the stock butt pad itself up and down. I have it in its all the way down position, but I have, looks like 5 positions here to raise it up if I wanted to. I think it works very well in the position it came out of the box for me, but there's just a lot of adjustability here, and I think that really aids in being able to make it fit the end user. Now, with these adjustments, with these screws, as I mentioned earlier, I do recommend using blue Loctite at least, just to make sure nothing moves once you get it where you want it. But having that versatility makes this a very appealing stock. There's other stocks on the market that bring similar features, but you either have to pick exactly the configuration you want out of the box, or you're going to be spending a ton of money in aftermarket additions to that stock to be able to get a higher cheek rest or anything like that. So this gives you all of those options in one stock, and I think that's a really great option. Now overall, through the 1,000 rounds, I've been really happy with the performance that I've had out of this furniture. Being able to run magnified optics for the first time in a way where I actually trust it to hold 0 and return to 0 has been a really nice experience. I've only really run red dots. Well, I think I just only run red dots on AKs because I never felt confident in this, but this now gives me an option to add more force multipliers to an AK. Or even if I wanted to, as I did before, run a red dot with a magnifier, I still have a lot of options that I'm used to in the AR world that maybe I haven't had in the AK world, at least not in a very elegant and robust way. This is allowing AK users to get a lot more versatility and a lot more force multipliers out of their guns. If you look at things that are going on overseas, you see a lot of AKs set up in a way very similar to this, and that's because it's effective. I know there's going to be the guys who are saying, yeah, rifle is fine, all you need is a standard com block AK. There's a lot of people that have had success running those. But again, there's a reason that you see people in modern battlefields against peer-to-peer enemies or near peer-to-peer enemies running rifles in a configuration a lot more like this. In modern battlefields, you need stuff to be able to ID positively and engage out to distance, and especially being able to integrate night vision is going to be a very important thing. And again, this is an option to allow you to do that. Now, the one drawback to all this is it is going to be pretty expensive. None of the components you see on this rifle are going to be the cheapest versions available. I would hope you wouldn't expect good quality stuff to be the cheapest on the market. But that being said, it is very competitively priced given the alternatives to this on the market. And a lot of the stuff that people have used in the past, because it's made overseas, is no longer able to be imported. People that I know that have had stuff try to be imported, it got seized at customs. This being made domestically eliminates any concern about that. So having a domestic producer of high quality modernizing furniture for AKs is a really, really good thing. Now, you guys know I have a Bulgarian kit AK-74. I've kind of wanted to keep that in a factory configuration or like a wood configuration just because I think it's cool. But this new Alpha equipment has made me really put second thoughts into that and consider maybe doing something like a more modernized AK-74. We'll see. I'm not going to go too crazy just yet, but so far I really like this stuff. You will see a lot more of this on the channel. This is not going anywhere anytime soon because I've really been enjoying it. I'm going to be doing a lot more shooting with this rifle, with these accessories, and if I have any updates, I'll definitely let you guys know. Now, I want to say thanks to my patrons for helping to make a video like this one possible. Again, Midwest Industries did provide the rifle and the furniture to be able to do this review, but as a lot of us AK shooters know, 7.62x39 ammo has become a lot less available and a lot more expensive. So the contributions I get over on Patreon directly funded the testing for this rifle. So I want to say thanks to them for that. Because of what they do, I post all my content over to Patreon early. We have some exclusive content. Hopefully we'll be doing some more live streams here shortly. I am actively working on getting patches and stickers to send out to you guys, so bear with me. But I really want to say thanks to those guys. There's a pretty small community of us over there, so thanks to those of you who put your money where your mouth is. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw that in the comment section down below. If you have any specific testing you want to see done with this rifle or this furniture, definitely let me know that as well. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. So we got 100 rounds through it. Just gonna do open and shut. It does cover a few times. I can't open it too far because of the optic hitting up here. This is still enough to be able to disassemble the rifle for maintenance. But I just want to do this a couple times. Open and close it. The instructions tell you to rack the action a couple times once you get it back installed, just to get everything recentered. And then, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. All right, so we've got about 100 rounds through this.